179. The Cartesian Heresy. Chalcedon Position Paper number 110. June 1989. We are routinely influenced by men whose names we may not know, but whose ideas are the axioms of almost all men. The key figure in the modern age, in this respect, has been René Descartes. The starting point of philosophy in the modern era has been Descartes' cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. The autonomous human consciousness and mind were his starting point, and with this existential premise, Descartes reasoned out to substantiate or prove the existence of the physical world and of God. For Descartes, man's mind or soul was locked up inside one of man's glands and therefore received all knowledge through the senses, second hand. Bishop Berkeley applied Occam's razor to Descartes and discarded the physical world. All that a man has are sense impressions of such a world sent by God. Hume was more logical. We could not know nor demonstrate the reality of either God or the physical universe. All we have is the mind of autonomous man and his impressions. All this made sense, remember, on the premise that man's mind is distinct from his physical being and has only second-hand sense impressions in his mind. Immanuel Kant resolved this crisis by saying that knowledge is not the congruity of our mind with objects outside of us. Rather, we must make trial whether we may not have more success in the task of metaphysics if we suppose that objects must conform to our knowledge. Kant, Critique of Pure Reason, Preface to the Second Edition, N.P. 1787. B. 16. Among the many who saw some of the implications of this was Karl Marx. In his Thesis on Feuerbach, he wrote, "The philosophers have only interpreted the world in various ways. The point, however, is to change it." Hegel had said, "The rational is the real." Now, Marx and others were determined to make reality become what their mind conceived to be rational. Sartre and others limited reality also to the autonomous and existential consciousness of the human mind. Instead of being one aspect of reality, man's mind had become reality. The result is a blindness, especially marked in modern man, a refusal to recognize as real whatever is objectionable to one's mind. David Klinghoffer, in AIDS and Just Another Word, in the Wall Street Journal, January the 20th, 1989, page A17, wrote, "Miss Susan Sontag wants to do with AIDS what her admirers in the semiotics department have done to literature, namely, bleed all the meaning out of it. Reality has become what the self-consciously would-be autonomous minds of scientists and intellectuals will it to be." A recent book by a scientist is emphatic on this point. Bruce Gregory's Inventing Reality, Physics as Language, 1988. Physics, we are told, is simply a language. It does not give us facts about reality, because physics as a language is reality. There seems to be no already made world waiting to be discovered. The fabric of nature, like all fabrics, is woven by human beings for human purposes. Page 186. Gregory, Associate Director of the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics, cites with approval Albert Einstein's comment when someone asked how he would have felt if observations failed to confirm his theory. Einstein answered, "Then I should have felt sorry for the dear Lord. The theory is correct." Page 10. Einstein also said, "Physical concepts are free creations of the human mind and are not, however it may seem, uniquely determined by the external world." Page 189. There is much more in this vein in Gregory's book. Our concern is to call attention to the fact that this same Cartesian reduction of reality to man's autonomous mind and its sense impressions and ideas also marks theology. In theology, the Cartesian perspective replaces the biblical history with ideas. These ideas are called myths and symbols. Because myths and symbols are mental constructs, they are more real, for these thinkers, than are the God-given facts. Like Einstein, if their symbols disagree with God's revealed word, so much the worse for God. The liturgy of the Church, until recently, had ancient roots in the Old Testament and in the early Church. Now, the old meanings of the various liturgical practices are being replaced with man-made or man-ordained meanings. The reality of the crucifixion and the atonement is replaced by the symbols of the communion. The historical meaning is replaced by the primacy of the symbol. Because these theologians, in speaking to, quote, ordinary, end quote, believers, do not try to distress the faithful by denying the reality of the historical, the people do not see what has happened to the historic faith. Calbat was insistent on the centrality of the virgin birth to the faith, but he denied that it was an actual historical event. Reinhold Niebuhr said that the resurrection was at the heart of Christianity, but not as something that occurred in the physical world in Jerusalem. An emphasis on symbolism and the symbols of the faith in this Cartesian sense is now pervasive in all circles. Greek Orthodox, Catholic and Protestant, Fundamentalist and Modernist, Calvinist and Arminian. In one sphere after another, symbols have replaced reality and become the new reality. Some years ago, an image of pathos and humour was a madman who believed he was Napoleon. What his mind decreed that he was became for him reality. What in such a person was seen as insanity is now good philosophy. The world of Descartes now holds in economics, politics, education, theology and elsewhere that the rational is the real. That which man's mind decrees to be the valid symbols becomes thereby reality. The roots of this are in Genesis chapter 3 verse 5. Man's will to be his own God, knowing or determining for himself what constitutes good and evil, reality and non-reality. Real is a word coming from the Latin realis, of the thing itself. The concept once presupposed reality to be something above and beyond man. The supreme and uncreated reality is the triune God. The universe of created things is a subsistent reality, that is, a reality which subsists or stands under God. Because of Descartes' presupposition and its effect on modern thought, reality now has either an existential meaning or a pragmatic one. We are told that, for pragmatism, truth or reality is what works. This should be qualified to read, "It is what works for me." The ultimate criterion for Cartesianism is the autonomous mind of man. At one time, the test of reality, truth, and authenticity was, what say the scholastics? Or, what are the scientific facts? Or, what says the Bible? Now, people respond in any argument with, well, I think, or, in my opinion, or, I feel. Every man has become his own version of reality, and he is the test and the standard of all things. In recent years, some academicians have declared that we are now in a postmodern era. These same people are often advocates of deconstructionist thinking. In either case, their basic position is to demolish the validity of all reality outside the mind of man. They are simply radical and abject followers of the Cartesian model. The dualism inherent in Descartes is not biblical. In Scripture, the mind of man, or his soul, is not a something cooped up in a gland or anywhere else. Man was created by God, a living soul, Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. He is fully mind and body, not a half-and-half product. Descartes made man's central problem to be one of knowledge. The Bible disagrees. Man's problem is primarily and essentially sin. As long as man evades his true problem, his sins will increase and his knowledge will be blighted. The word heresy means a taking for oneself. That is, determining for oneself what to believe and accept instead of assenting to what God sets forth in His Word. Cartesianism exalts precisely this temper into a philosophy, the mind of man as the determiner of truth and reality. At present, state schools in the United States boast of teaching values. But the values they teach are self-determined or Cartesian values. The student is taught that it is his choice, that values are to be chosen in terms of one's needs and goals. This is why our humanistic world order is in trouble and is under judgment. Cartesian self-indulgence is also apparent in churches when people demand that the preaching please them, make them feel good, concentrate on what interests them, and so on. The emphasis is on what the people want, not what God ordains. The world of Descartes is a dying world and a mad world. Wherefore, come out from among them and be ye separate, saith the Lord. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 17. Walt Whitman said, "Man must become a law unto himself." Ralph Waldo Emerson declared, "Build therefore your own world." The result is a nightmare world. To separate ourselves from this mad world of dreams and symbols is an act of sanity and faith